The fling that the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, has long privately revealed she had with Prince Harry.
But this business came up with flirty Facebook messages that he had shared with journalist Charlotte Griffiths from the Mail.
Apparently sent a string of Facebook messages to a journalist in which he joked about drinking her under the table. This is according to
Prince Harry took the stand. His story was clear. No friendships with journalists, no hidden communication, no blurred lines.
I was on my way to bed when I saw this breaking news and I knew that we had to discuss it. I am dying over this.
She's very private about her house, so the angles were very carefully managed, and she very carefully called Harry my husband.
Hope you're really well, Griff. Miss our movie snuggles. I'm off comms all week in case you think I'm being rude. Keep me posted. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Close friends with Charlotte Griffiths, and she has become the first person from the Mail to break their silence about the release of these messages.
And even the Queen, whose opinion is so valued by the entire country, was disregarded. But of course, I think she was advising him exactly the right thing.
In Prince Harry's court case, some of the key tenets of it is against in part the Daily Mail, was that they used unlawful tactics.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, don't forget, in the Netflix documentary we saw a couple of months ago, there's actual footage of them moving out. So they've pretty much moved out anyway. So
if he can't play this out in private, in other words, he's appealing to supporters of Harry, by which I think he means
advised Prince Harry to wait a year before marrying Meghan Markle, according to a new biography.
He stood in a London courtroom and told the world he never befriended journalists. Never. Not once. That was his position. That was the foundation of his entire case. And then Charlotte Griffiths walked in. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives. What happened next didn't just complicate Prince Harry's lawsuit. It put a crack right through the story he had been telling for years. The story the Queen never got to hear the end of, because here's what made this different from every other royal controversy. This wasn't a tabloid claim. This wasn't an anonymous source or a palace whisper. This was a sworn witness, a senior journalist, in open court, under oath, and what she confirmed changed the shape of everything. Charlotte Griffiths is not a peripheral figure. She is editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday. It's out in one of the very titles Harry has spent years and millions of pounds trying to destroy in court. She has covered the royal family for over a decade. And in early 2026, she sat before the High Court and gave evidence that Harry's own legal team could not simply dismiss. Her testimony didn't arrive with fanfare. It arrived quietly, methodically, and it landed like a stone. She told the court she had moved in some of the same social circles as both Prince William and Prince Harry, that she had attended private weekend house parties where Harry was a guest, that she had his personal phone number, sent to her directly by Harry himself, over Facebook, in 2011. And that call records placed the two of them in contact as late as June 2012, including a call at 2:50 in the morning. That's where things stopped making sense. Because Harry told that same court, under oath, that he had no friendships with journalists, that no one in his close circle talked to the press, that once he realized Griffiths worked for the Mail, he cut off all contact immediately. Griffiths said that was not true, and the messages backed her up. Facebook exchanges published by The Telegraph and The Times in April 2026 showed Harry calling Griffiths sugar, signing off with strings of kisses, telling her he missed their movie snuggles, writing that a weekend they had shared was without doubt the best he'd been to. This was not the language of someone who met a journalist once and walked away. This was warmth, familiarity, a friendship, whatever its exact shape, that ran quietly beneath the surface for months. Something about this doesn't add up. Harry's lawsuit rests on a specific argument, that the Mail titles unlawfully gathered private information about him, through phone hacking, private investigators, and covert means, that his privacy was violated, that he was a target. But now his own legal proceedings had surfaced. Something his team clearly hadn't accounted for, a senior Mail journalist who knew him personally, who had his number, who had been in rooms with him while the press war was still forming, and critics were quick to ask the obvious question. If Harry genuinely believed the Mail was corrupt and predatory, why was he texting one of its editors good morning? Now, here's what made Griffiths' position in that courtroom particularly damaging. Harry's legal team tried to push back. They suggested she had invented connections to the royal family, that she had deliberately overstated her relationship with Harry. Griffiths denied every part of it, and the messages were already in the record. You cannot cross-examine a Facebook timestamp. You cannot argue with a phone log showing a 2:50 a.m. call. Harry's team could challenge her memory, her motives, her character. What they could not do was make the evidence disappear. Now, to understand why this matters beyond the courtroom, you have to go back. Not to 2026. Not even to Meghan. You have to go back to the years when the Queen was still managing her grandson, still trying to hold the institution together, still believing that Harry's grievances with the press could be handled quietly, privately, within the family. Because between 2011 and 2012, the exact window these messages were sent, Harry was a working royal. He was under palace guidance. He was attending Trooping the Colour. He was, at least on the surface, operating within the structure the Queen had spent her entire reign building. And the Queen's approach to the press was always the same. You do not make them your enemy. You keep your distance. You maintain the line. Harry, it now appears, was not maintaining the line. He was texting a Mail on Sunday journalist at 2:50 in the morning after a night out. He was calling her sugar. He was reminiscing about weekends away. And none of that, none of it, Yanim, was ever disclosed to the palace. Not to the Queen's advisors, not to the institution quietly absorbing the damage every time Harry's relationship with the press became a headline. This is what Griffiths confirmed, not just a contradiction, a concealment. And here's what's raising eyebrows among royal watchers who have followed this lawsuit from the beginning. Harry did not simply claim he avoided journalists. He built an entire public identity around that claim. The speeches, the documentary, the memoir, the courtroom testimony, all of it anchored to the idea that he was a private man, hunted by a corrupt press who never once played the game. But the game, it turns out, had already been played. There's something else worth sitting with. Griffiths also told the court that she knew about the Princess of Wales's first pregnancy with Prince George, days before the official palace announcement. She learned it at a private event. She chose not to report it. She said she missed a scoop to protect her friendships, and because she knew where the line was. Read that again. A Mail on Sunday editor had royal family intelligence. She chose silence. She protected her access. That is not the behavior of a journalist operating at arm's length from the palace circle. That is someone embedded, someone trusted, by people in Harry's world, to keep secrets. And yet Harry told the court no one from his close circle talked to the press. The timing here matters. These messages, these parties, these early morning phone calls, they didn't happen in a vacuum. They happened while the Queen was managing a royal family increasingly fractured by press exposure. They happened while palace communications teams were carefully controlling what got out and what didn't. They happened while Harry was being shaped, quietly, into the institution's future. The Queen never knew he was calling a tabloid editor sugar. She never knew because Harry never told her, and there's something almost unbearable about that, because the Queen was not naive about the press. She had lived through decades of tabloid warfare. She had watched it consume Diana. She had watched it strain Charles, Andrew, Sarah Ferguson. She understood, better than almost anyone alive, exactly what it meant when a royal let the boundaries blur. And still, Harry never told her. Whatever she suspected, whatever her advisors may have quietly flagged, the full picture remained hidden. By the time the evidence surfaced in open court, she was no longer there to hear it. And by the time the full picture of his press relationships began to emerge in a high court trial that ran into 2026, the Queen was gone. Many observers watching this case have pointed to something uncomfortable. Harry launched his war on the press as a crusade, a moral fight, a mission to hold corrupt institutions accountable. He gave interviews, he wrote a book, he stood before cameras and said the press had broken him, lied about him, hunted him. But Charlotte Griffiths, one of the journalists on the other side of that war, sat in a witness box and described a different Harry, a Harry who sought her out, who kept in touch, who was friendly, familiar, present in the same social world she occupied. Was this really about privacy? Or was it about control, over which version of Harry the world was allowed to see? That question now sits at the center of a lawsuit Harry himself brought. And the judge has heard the evidence. The messages are in the record. Griffiths' testimony is on file. The Queen spent her final years watching Harry wage a public battle she privately wished he had never started. She wanted resolution. She wanted quiet. She reportedly insisted on having a witness present on calls with Harry in her last years, a detail that says everything about how far the trust had eroded. And now, in a courtroom in London, a piece of Harry's hidden history has surfaced. A friendship he denied, a contact he never disclosed, a version of himself he buried beneath the narrative of victimhood. Charlotte Griffiths didn't destroy Harry's case with theatrics. She walked in, gave her evidence, and let the record do the work. The Queen deserved to know what was really happening behind the scenes. She deserved the truth from the grandson she protected, defended, and quietly mourned losing. She never got it. The judgment in this case has not yet been delivered, which means the full reckoning, whatever it looks like, is still coming. And when it arrives, the question won't just be whether Harry wins or loses in court. It will be whether the story he told the world and the story he never told the Queen can survive being in the same room together. Subscribe to Royal Archives, because this case is far from over, and what comes next may be the most revealing chapter yet.